Hi everybody, I'm Dr. Donald Pfau from the Center of Chiropractic Neurology. A lot of people will come into my clinic, they ask, well, what exactly is a chiropractic neurologist? So first I'm going to start out talking about the differences between a medical neurologist, a chiropractic neurologist, and a regular chiropractor. I'm also going to talk about how my approach to chiropractic neurology might vary from what you might have seen out in the public. First off, medical neurologists typically tend to deal with medications. I do not. I do have to know what they are and functions of them and everything else, but I don't prescribe. They are also, medical neurologists are responsible for emergency procedures and surgeries and things like that, where I deal more with the rehab side of things. Regular chiropractor might have some training with the neurology, but I've got advanced training, 300 extra hours. Actually, I'm up to around 700. I sat in for my board examinations and passed, so I've got a diplomate in chiropractic neurology, and I was recently named as a fellow within my academy back in 2015. So we kind of have a general idea, okay, well, we know that he doesn't deal with medications, so what is his approach? First off, I find I deal with a hierarchy of how to take care of people when they come in. It's not really a survival hierarchy, but pretty much you can kind of approach it from that way. For example, when patients come in, I start them off, how are they breathing? Are they breathing correctly? Are they breathing high up here with their chest, which is an indicator of anxiety and stress. It could be maybe just bad breathing mechanics is why they're breathing up there. Yes, you can have metabolic stuff, but we can also look at that in the big picture as well. But if it's not there, okay, do we need to sit there and teach them how to do belly breathing, incorporate better breathing mechanics. I also look at brain function and cardiac function. For example, I take blood pressures on both sides. I'll take a pulse rate. I'll listen for skips, murmurs, any odd things like that to sit there and find out, well, if your heart isn't working right, maybe you need to talk to your medical doctor and we can coordinate care that way, because if you don't have the right cardiac function, your brain can actually have issues as well. I'll check out the brain function too, such as was there recent trauma or any old trauma, things that could be interfering, metabolic issues, any autoimmunities such as MS, and various other things like that. Parkinson's comes to mind. So then, now we've got your breathing, your brain function, and your cardiac function. I'll start looking at sensation. Can you feel hot? Can you feel cold? Do you feel sharp, dull? Pressure, touch, light touch, things like that, because those are all signs that the brain uses to sit there and figure out where it's at in space, which leads me to proprioception right here. With proprioception, that takes it a step further. For example, why am I able to close my eyes and put my hand in front of my face and know where it's at without physically seeing it? We have specialized cells inside of our ligaments, tendons, or muscles, such as your Golgi tendon organs or your muscle spindles, that respond to stretch, pressure, tension, things like that, that communicate back and forth with the brain, because your brain has to know where your body parts are in space at all times. It can't really survive without it. It has to know, where you are, where you're walking, so it can properly coordinate the next move and make things smooth. Balance and coordination I also take a look at too, because as we start going down that list, we're starting to get more and more refined in what our functions are. So are you able to stay balanced? Can you walk? Can you stand on one leg? An inability to stand on one leg can tell me that there's a certain section of your brain that's not working that well. And it gives me an idea, well, how do we drive your treatment plan and your rehab, as well as what kind of exercises do I need to assign you? Because I can't just give you blanket exercises and say, go do these will work. That's not always the case, because everybody's a little different. Joe might be different from Sally, and Sally might be different from Mary. So I have to kind of figure everybody out, and there's no such thing as a one-size-fits-all program. Finally, or not finally, rather, I'll start looking at motor functions such as gait. How do you move? Are you moving in synchrony? Are you moving fluid and smooth, or is it herky and jerky? Or are you having lack of inhibition, such as tremoring and things like that? That's where we start looking at some of the motor functions. Finally, we start getting down to more advanced brain functions, such as cognition. Cognition is the ability to think, the ability to reason, things like that. decide I want to paint my room blue versus I just want to paint various things like that. But without the above things working, cognition becomes a little bit harder, such as memory. So if your proprioception's off and your balance and your coordination, or maybe even your cardiac function might not be working that well, your memory can be affected because your brain is spending all this energy and time trying to figure out where am I in space, how am I getting around, things like that, where certain things might suffer because the brain would rather spend its resources trying to figure out where you are and getting you from point A to point B safely without getting eaten alive. So then we got, right after cognition, you have feelings, and then you have your behavior and speech. So if your brain isn't working that well, your proprioception's off, your sensory, any of the above items that we've already talked about is not really flowing that well, then these don't matter. For example, you have a kid who has a stuttering problem. It could be because the jaw right over here is off, their TMJ, because one of the primary joints of proprioception is your jaw. The other ones are your shoulders, the outside of your knees, and there's a couple more. But so if your jaw is off, then how can you really think about speaking? So you adjust the jaw, and then you have emotional trauma from kids making fun of them and stuff like that. Now you have PTSD, which is that feeling, then cognition down here. But when it really came down to such a problem like proprioception, where's his jaw? Because the bottom line is our eyes, we were developed through time to walk upright with our eyes focusing and scanning on the horizon, looking for predators and prey, as well as food, being able to see and recognize friend and foe. But when things are off, your body will change. Your head might be like this, but your eyes are always going to be level. It's pretty much impossible to go through life with your head like that. But back to the kid I was talking about with the stuttering problem, is not really, is it a speech issue, which is down here? Because if it's, your proprioception's off and your motor control's not working right, your tongue doesn't work right, speech is a non-issue. So you start working on this above stuff here, you can correct some of these bottom things down here. That's why I see people with concussions. Why are they having memory problems? Why are they having balance problems? Emotional trauma or emotional, they get angry and things like that, or various, feelings and things like that. You're crazy, it's in your head. Well, maybe we need to clean these up before we can really approach this stuff down here. So that is basically my chiropractic approach to chiropractic neurology, and I hope you enjoyed what I had to talk about today.